Hello, everyone. Let's talk about the Indiana Fever's draft. It's been 4 days. I've been swamped with Pacers playoff stuff, but I have some time before the playoffs actually start. I want to talk about what the Fever did, why it diverged a little from what I thought they might do, but why it still makes a lot of sense to me because of what it ended up being and what it ended up showing about the team and what they hope to do, which has become so clear through their actions more so than their words. But I personally love that they all match. 3 picks for the Fever. You can watch my prediction video on what their draft might look like from Sunday if you'd like to. It's on this channel. And I wondered, given their cap situation, given their lack of any true needs on the roster, their hopes to contend instead of, be more a building team this year, if they would look at some draft and stash players. I did think that they would pick someone that would compete in camp or could be on the team this year. One, because Amber Cox told us that, the general manager. She said they wanted a competitive training camp, right? They wanted to have that set up. Jaylen Brown, who they acquired in a trade this offseason, plus some or all of their draftees, could lead to a competitive camp. Plus, these rookie scale contracts could be super valuable going forward if any of these players have any on-court value in the present term and stick on the team beyond the season. I got picking some players. I thought they might go more draft and stashy just because it's going to be so hard. They can only, given their cap situation, keep one of their draft picks this year unless they cut one of their clear established top 10 players from their summer, which I don't think they're going to do. So don't get me wrong. I don't think what the Fever did in the draft is bad. That's just why what they did surprised me a little bit, that they went with 3 players who had really solid college careers and all showed at some point that they could bring something of note to the table, right? And have interesting paths as pros. I've seen second-round picks make the Fever roster, including Destiny Henderson, a teammate of one of their picks from this draft. I've seen third-round picks, Victoria Saxton, also a teammate of the same player the Fever picked in this draft, and, of course, Aaliyah Boston in college, right? I've seen lottery picks get cut in their first season. I've seen a lot of Fever draft flubbery in my time covering this team, so you just never know. But I like their strategy if they were going to solely pick players. And what I mean by strategy is it became very clear to me after their first 2 picks that they just targeted good-fitting players, right? Of course, you want camp competition, but it didn't feel to me at any point that they were targeting a specific spot or a specific skill set. They were just targeting players who could fit what we have determined their system to be this offseason through asking Stephanie White about it twice, through asking players about it, and just through looking at what the skill set of the team is now. It's very clear what the Fever want to be. They want to play very fast. They want to spread the floor. That is exactly how a team should look around Caitlin Clark to me in the WNBA, right? They run hard so that they're open for her passes because she's dynamite with those. They have some speed like Kelsey Mitchell with the ball to keep actions flowing when Clark creates an advantage. And they can shoot and spread things out and make it easy for guards or bigs to have the space to operate and score. Makes all the sense in the world. They were trending that way at times last season, but were a little too station-to-station clunky at times. Didn't get enough stops to get in transition, right? Regardless of all that, every draft pick fits in a box or many boxes of has skills that can help the Fever with that style, right? Their first pick in the second round, they picked Makayla Timpson from Florida State. Amber Cox, in the press conference she did for the Fever, talked about immediately her stats. She said, only player in college last year who averaged a double-double with 3 blocks, which is true. 2 years in a row, Timpson led the ACC in blocks. 2 years in a row, not her senior year, but the 2 before that, she led the ACC in field goal percentage, right? Sweet. Those are good numbers. 17.5 points, 10.6 boards last year with those 3.1 blocks. The appeal here, I've watched a little bit of these players. I don't keep up a ton with college basketball. I'll be the first to admit, besides my Hoosiers. She can really run the floor, and she's good on the glass, and the 3.1 blocks obviously is impressive. Like 4-5 tweener, more so than anything else. And if you can get stops, you'll get a team in transition. That's how you can fit. I think she and the third pick that we'll talk about later, the Fever made, both have similar ways that they add to the Fever style in terms of what they add. Timpson probably the better defender of the two. And I like that, right? The stats are there. Not really a floor spacer. In fact, barely took threes at all at the collegiate level. 12 total across 4 seasons at Florida State. But that doesn't really matter when you can be a floor runner, free throw line to free throw line, paint to paint, whatever you want to say. And, of course, has skills to get stops to allow the Fever to get there. Then the totally opposite direction with pick 2, Brie Hall from South Carolina. If you need a comp here, this one's very easy to me. Lexi Hall, but a guard. All right, a little bit shorter Lexi Hall. Brie Hall is 3-and-D through and through. Great shooter. 36% her sophomore year, 38% her junior year, 39% her junior year, 38% her senior year on healthy volume. Largely catch and shoot, but that's great. Shooting is going to be a valuable skill on this Fever team. It was a valuable skill on the South Carolina teams, right? They won 2 titles with Hall on that group. Good rebounder for her size, right? Not asked to be a creator. I would totally call Hall an off-ball guard, catch and shoot, but a really tenacious defender. That is going to be a fit on the Fever. Absolutely, right? Spread the floor, check. Good in the open floor, check. Good at defense, getting stops to get into the open floor in transition, check. Love that fit. I think that's a great pick. She played with Leah Boston at South Carolina. They won a title together, right? Boston tweeting about that during the draft. Excited to see Hall. She was excited to see Hall coming to the Fever. Again, makes sense with the Fever style. And I think it's good that the Fever were so focused on style. Their third pick and their only pick in the third round, Yvonne Ejim from Gonzaga, Canadian forward. Watching her was very fun. She talked about how much she loved to play physical, right? She's going to kind of hit you down low. And I was reading a story about how much her post-game developed at Gonzaga, right? I don't think she'll be asked to do that a ton in the W. No one really is. But she developed a lot as a post-finisher. If you could play physical, that's great. That's all exciting. But her defensive growth was the big thing, leading the WCC in rebounding her final season at Gonzaga, leading the conference in scoring 2 years in a row, leading the conference in field goal percentage in her 4th season. Efficient post-finisher, good rebounder to get a team into transition, has clear skills. That would fit the Fever style. More small ball 5, I think, in the pros than the 4 she sometimes played. In college, Timpson and her both kind of remind me of tweeners, as people call them, between the 4 and the 5. Hall, obviously, Hall. I compared her to Hull. Similar sounding names. Seems like a 3-and-D guard. Altogether, it's very clear to me, right? They brought in players who fit their system, and they have a training camp to prove it, but the natural fits will help a lot. I think right away the Fever are going to try to establish that kind of style. In fact, in some ways they did last year. We went into training camp the first day. We could see what they were doing with our media availability. They were watching transition clips with Christy Sides and that staff, working on what they can do better in the open floor, right? And that was a focus of last year's team. They didn't get enough stops to actually do it, and they didn't have enough shooting to actually be a super threatening transition team. And some of that was on the players not, doing their job running the floor all the time, but that was what they hoped to be, and it didn't really click until, obviously they started 2-8, but 10, 15 games in, and then it was humming. This group with more vets, it should click sooner, and it should just make more sense with IQ on the floor. So really looking forward to seeing how these new draftees can battle. For your refresher on the situation, between what I would consider the Fever set rotation. I've had some comments quibbling with who I believe to be the starting 5, but regardless, Clark, Mitchell, Bonner, Howard, Boston, and then Coulson, Hall, Cunningham, Dantas, and Turner. That's 10 players. I would consider all of them locks or near locks to be on the roster this year because either they're good, they were just signed in free agency, or they fit really well, or in almost every case, all 3. Makes me think that is a safe assumption as the Fever's top 10. If you add those 10 players' salaries together, plus the buyout amount for Katie Lou Samuelson, who's now with the Seattle Storm, you get just under $1.4 million. The salary cap is just over 1.5. So the Fever can't fit in 2 of the rookie numbers from the draft and Jaylen Brown's contract. They can only fit 1, right? So I think their training camp battle will be between Brown, Hall, Timpson, and Egim for the final spot. They also have other signings that could happen. They already brought in 1 player for camp. They could bring in more. Up to 18 is the maximum number a team can have for camp. But I think that the cap situation suggests that is certainly the reality, is that those 4 players plus anyone else are fighting for 1 spot unless one of the top 10 that I already mentioned is waived. But that's why I think fit matters so much to the Fever. If someone doesn't fit their style, they're immediately disqualified from being someone who could help them out of camp or someone they would like to keep through training camp. So if they want a competitive camp, they have to draft for fit, even though the position itself didn't matter, and they absolutely did that. I'm not going to sit here and predict who the most likely to make the team would be because I haven't seen them play in a WNBA uniform yet. We'll see through camp and preseason games. The Fever have many of those. And that's when we can really talk about what the Fever's roster should look like. And they can, at some point during the season, contracts prorate as the season progresses. They will be able to sign a 12th player at some point. They just won't be able to enter the season with 12 players unless they waive one of the, to me, established top 10. So that's the Fever draft and their new cap reality. I don't have a ton of deep dive insights into scouting reports on these players, just what I've gathered from listening to the front office talk, listening to Stephanie White talk, watching some clips here and there of these players to get a feel for what they are. And that is the Fever's offseason. In the rearview mirror, they could make a training camp signing here or there, but a lot of their big moves are done. I'm going to be all in on Pacers playoffs the next couple weeks, but Fever training camp's coming right up, and I'll be at everything I can, including preseason games when possible. Looking forward to all that. So if you guys learned something, that's great. I cover the team for the next I have for the last 5 years and don't plan on stopping anytime soon. Thank you all for watching. Fever more content coming later this month, early next month as camp gets going. Thank you for watching.